if you haven't saved enough to retire in the future and you get into your 50s, you're going to have to increase your savings to try to be okay when you retire. So the government went and said, like, okay, you're allowed to put away more. You can put away an extra $7,500 or $31,000 total. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But to your point, now there's this new act called Secure 2.0 that passed recently. And with that, there's another provision on catch-ups. Tell us about that.
It's a strange one. This one got me reading a little bit. And if you're between the ages of 60 and 63, so
it's so random.
Four-year window.
Yes.
Right. I feel like that's going to be a future test question for, someone coming into their career, taking their CFP.
Definitely a CFP question in the future. Yes.
Because, man, do these charts change every year, right? I remember taking my exam and they were very different numbers. So,
absolutely.
So for that small group or subset of people from 60 to 63, to Scott's point, not only do you have that extra $7,500 as a catch-up, right? But you also have an additional $3,750. Basically, the number between the catch-up and the additional amount is $11,250.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to use round numbers and make it easy. We're going to make it a little difficult.
Well, the simpler answer is what they did was they said, hey, if you're really in a bad place and you're in your 60s and you haven't saved enough, we'll let you not only contribute that $7,500, but whatever that number is, you can take that number times 150%, and that's the new catch-up amount you get for those 4 years.
And so I think I go back to Nathan's question. One of the things that he had in there was, does the amount that he contributes plus what his employer contributes, does that count towards that maximum number? And when I look at it, one thing that a lot of people may not know is the amount that you could put into these qualified savings plans is actually bigger than this number that we just shared. There's actually two components to it. There's you as the employee, and then there's what we call either the profit sharing or the employer contributions. And those are two separate amounts. So that's a great question, Nathan. The amount that you're contributing is just your portion that you're responsible for. And then your employer will have their own respective portion within your plan. And so when we look at the total number of what is the maximum amount that you could fill that 401k bucket up with, I believe the number, Scott, correct me if I'm wrong here, those numbers change all the time, is $70,000 for this year.
Yeah, so you're 100% correct. And so you got to think of it as Nathan gets to put away up to $23,500 because he's under age 50. And then his employer's making a contribution as well, currently 8.5%. But they could actually contribute a whole lot more to that and get him up to $70,000. Another thing that can happen is sometimes you may have heard of this idea called a backdoor Roth conversion or a mega backdoor Roth conversion. Well, people will use that 70,000 number. They'll put the 23,500 into their 401k normally, and then they'll do after-tax contributions and convert it to Roth up to that 70,000 number as well. So there's a few different ways you can think about that number, but that number is essentially all of my employee contributions, any of my after-tax contributions, and any of the employer contributions combined. And the only thing you need to add to that is that catch-up provision that we mentioned earlier, you always get to put the catch-up provision on top of that employer-employee number. So for someone who's over the age of 50 this year, they could potentially put away up to $81,250, which is bananas.